Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome back to another edition of Review Morgue.
Dun, dun, dun. We need some
And
kind of producer click, the little click thing when they say take one. Okay.
oh yeah, we do.
Take 20. Okay. So,
So
yeah.
as you can kind of see, you can't see like right behind me, but you can see the tombstone behind my head, which says
hmm
Ligeia. And so we are going to be reviewing The Tomb of Ligeia tonight.
Yes, which is our last Roger Corman
Yes,
movie.
yes.
So,
American International Pictures,
hmm
done in 1964.
hmm
And this was the eighth Corman Poe film. The seventh one for Vincent Price. Because don't forget, Ray Milland was in premature burial.
Right. And then what I thought was interesting was that it's 1964 on IMDb, but when
Hmm.
you look at it on Tubi, it actually has it 1965.
I wonder if it released in a different year from England to America.
That's what I was thinking because I was like, yeah, that's like two different times. But usually when they finish filming versus when it actually goes public can be a
True.
different time.
That is true. Absolutely. So our main actor, again, like we just said, Vincent Price,
Yep.
he is the legend, the horror master, and so I don't think we even need to talk about him in depth. Because we have mentioned him many, many times, and he is just you say his name and you just
Most
pause.
people know. Yeah.
Yes. And so he played the character of Verdun Fell, and Elizabeth Shepard was the main actress in the film, and she played the double role of his first wife, Ligeia, or I should say, the Lady Ligeia, and the Lady Rowena, who was his second wife. And
Right.
we'll get into that a little bit later. But one other movie that she was in was Damien Omen 2. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But she's done quite a bit, and she's did an excellent job in this film.
Yeah. And she's still alive, like Carmen found out earlier. She's
Yes, yeah.
still alive.
Born in 1936. So as Jeannie we were talking
Okay.
about, she'll be 90 years old this year.
Yep. She'll be 90.
And I think when I was looking at her IMDb listing, I believe she had done some work. I can't remember if it was 2023 or last year was her last credit, which I thought that's amazing. That's awesome
Mm.
that she's still working.
Yeah,
Probably
that
smaller
is.
parts, but
Yeah, it's good that she can still say that she's got listings out there to do, so that's
mhm.
good.
Absolutely. And then this to me, this film, one, and we'll get into this later too, but the setting of this film is in the ruins of Castle Acre Priory, which is located in Swaffham, Norfolk, England. It is absolutely breathtaking, and I
Mhm.
think to me that's one of the things that makes this film so unique was the setting.
Yeah, this one it wasn't more static. All the
Yeah.
other films were mostly you could tell that they were stage sets.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
this one, they made a point. Now they still had some stage settings like with the Abbey and all that kind of stuff, but by them putting in the ruins and the Stonehenge and everything like that. It did make it very breathtaking to watch the scenery in this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the one of the things that has always hooked me into this film. It is one of my more favorites of the Corman films because of the setting, and not and Vincent Price, of course. So
Yeah. Yeah, he's a hook for me, but
Oh, absolutely. And the other actors who were in it were they did a really good job as well, but I didn't recognize them as much as, Elizabeth Shepard. And I was going to say,
yeah, they only had the third main character. This one, it was very central on a trifecta point of view. Because
hmm
the third guy, I don't remember his name. What was his name?
well, there was John Westbrook played Christopher, I think it's Gow or Go, was
Uh-huh.
the man who kind of intervened with some things.
He
Uh
was the friend of Vernon, and he pretty much was in love with Rowena.
yes, and then Derek Francis played Lord Trevanion, who was her
Mhm.
father, and
Right.
then I believe that's correct. And then Oliver Johnson played Kenrick, who was
The butler.
yes.
Or yeah.
Yes, and then there was a doctor. There were some other very small parts at the very beginning when
Mhm.
Ligeia was being buried, but all of those people, I mean, they were in it for what, less than what, 10, 15 minutes, Jeannie?
I don't think it was even that long.
Yeah.
But like I said, it was more centered on the characters of Vernon, Rowena, and Chris
Mm-hmm.
because it felt a lot like a love triangle.
Yeah.
And then the butler or squire or whatever you want to call him, uh, he was devoted to Vernon and everything. He was in it almost as much as they were.
Yeah.
But those
Absolutely.
were the only ones that stuck out as main players. Everybody else was just background noise to me,
Yeah. No, you're right though.
except for the cat. We can't forget the cat.
Oh, yes, the cat was a main character. You really
Yeah.
think about it.
Oh yes, the character. I was it's sad, but I was rooting for the cat more than I was anything else in the million. Because the cat was very much a central focus, and I'm
hmm
going, are we watching Ligeia or are we watching the Black Cat? Like, because this
Exactly.
one, I hate to say it, but when I was watching the movie, I was thinking, wow, there's more about the Black Cat in this movie than there was in the actual movie of the Black Cat.
Yeah, that is true. And you see him behind my head.
Yes, that's not her actual black cat. That's
Yeah.
the actual movie cat.
Oh, I know. But the story itself compared to or the movie compared to the story, I think they
Mhm.
did keep many of the things decently connected in this one. There were, some things that were definitely different, especially like with the cat.
Mhm.
Just the, I'm
It
trying to think.
definitely had a satanic feel again.
Yeah, it really, and more with an Egyptian connection
Yeah.
when you think about it, because he had, Verdun had all of these Egyptian relics from like, it looked like he had been on digs and things like that. But there was no really reference that he did travel to, and obtained all these things on his own. It was more that he collected them.
Well, and also I think the one of the reasons they brought that one point in about the Egyptian head
Mm-hmm.
was because it was made of wax.
Yes.
Because Vernon didn't say, because Chris asked him, did you travel? And he made a point of saying, oh no, that's completely, I made it out of wax.
Yes.
And that's
That's true.
like a foreshadowing, in my opinion.
I think,
And
yeah.
some of the statues did have an Egyptian type quality, but they also had pagan qualities.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a nice mixture in there
Yeah.
of different, like the elephant head
Yeah.
and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was more on a Hindu
That's
trial
true.
and
Yeah, that
stuff.
would
So
be.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it had a very pagan feel, and because it mixed a lot of different statues in there, and
Yeah, I would definitely say like you just brought up the word pagan. I would say more pagan than satanic.
Mhm.
Because like when we look at Mask of the Red Death, that was the satanic aspect of.
Yeah, I guess the reason I hit upon the satanic part is because of the fire and the red and just the whole hypnotism type aspect of it, about how the
True.
control, and that just had more of a, possession type of feel to me.
Yeah.
So that's where I got like the satanic, like demons possessed, that kind of thing.
That makes sense. Yeah, because there was the mesmerism type aspect, or like you said, hypnotism in the
Yeah.
movie.
I love how Vincent Price said the word
I know.
hypnotism. I went,
Oh,
okie
I think
dokie,
that was
that's
on purpose. That definitely was
yeah,
on
I know, but I
purpose.
was like, I like it.
Yeah.
Hypnotism.
But basically, the movie begins with the tomb, like the
Burial.
interment of
Yeah.
Ligeia, who died, and her coffin has the glass window where you can
Hmm.
see her, like, with, her eyes are closed and everything, and she has dark hair. And the words that Verdon kept repeating are what's on her tombstone, nor lie in death. I can't remember, and the cat's blocking it.
Nor lie in death forever, I think.
I
No,
think
wait a minute. Nor lie in death here forever, or something like that.
yeah, it basically saying that she told Verdon that she would never die, like she would always
Right.
be there. And so that was definitely a theme throughout the entire movie. And they buried her, so they thought. And then kind of switched to a little bit later in time, not much. We have basically Rowena, and they're on a fox hunt, and she ends up falling off her horse right at Ligeia's tomb.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Verdon meets her, because he scares the you know what out of her, because he came kind of behind the tree that's next to the tombstone and almost scared her to death. But what one thing, the aspects of that part of the movie when they meet is she, right below her grave, are asphodels. They're actually not asphodels, but they
No.
say they're asphodels, because they look nothing like a real asphodel. But I love the sentiment of it, and this is one of the inspirations for the asphodels, my book. Just want to throw that in there, uh, because it's just they're all covering the ground around Ligeia's grave, and Elizabeth Shepherd as Rowena is wearing black and red for her riding outfit. And it's like the black represents the death and the black cat. The red represents the flowers. And, just thinking about, I guess you can even say blood on some level. And it's just a really incredible scene when they meet.
Yeah, I was a little perturbed when, she said that she fell in the asphodels that were covering the grave, and I'm going, that's
Yeah.
not asphodels. That
No.
that just, it just irritated me. I'm like,
Yeah.
asphodels are not red. Why
No.
and I know why they used it, because the floral Victorian book.
Oh
The
yeah. Well, and here's the other thing to note about this is that Poe used asphodels in multiple things.
Oh,
He mentions them in his story Eleonora, in Berenice, The Island of the Fae, and his poem, The Valley of Unrest. So asphodels were not, you know, not ignored by Poe. And so I think in a way it was kind of paying homage to his other works because, and it is a death flower, and that's even mentioned in the movie by Price as Verdon when he says it's like, this is the death flowers.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love the homage and
Hmm.
the nod to Poe with the use of the asphodels. Like you said,
Yes,
there's so many different works that he mentions the asphodel. I just was irritated because it was such a misrepresentation of the actual flower.
flower. Yeah.
And like we were talking about it, they probably did it because of the color effect.
I think so too. Because
And,
yeah, as we know, the asphodel can be the white with the pink, but it can
mhm,
also be yellow. They come in yellow as
yes.
well. Very bright.
So yeah, and that would not fit with their, theme.
No,
But and at some point, there's not going to be a lot of people that's going to know asphodels themselves
absolutely.
and the
Hmm.
colors and everything. So, overlooking that fact, it was rather appropriate for them to be put there.
I
Um,
agree. And I've thought of something that, you know, how in, romantic comedies you have the
mhm,
meet cute. I'm going to
mhm.
start saying from now on when we are talking about these movies where the love interests meet, it's going to be a meet morbid,
Meat morbid.
or meet macabre.
Yeah,
I think that's
that makes
fitting.
yeah. But when you say meat macabre, that makes me think of dark meat that you eat.
All
You
right,
know,
meet morbid then.
yeah, yeah. That might work. That one might work
All
better.
right. I'm gonna write that down so we
So,
don't forget.
meat morbid.
A meet morbid instead of a meet cute because it got morbid.
And most of these with the Poe does get morbid because there's
Absolutely.
not really many that have happy endings. So,
No, absolutely. So basically, once this scene happens, and it's very pivotal in the movie because Verdon is still not over his wife, Ligeia,
mm-mm.
and Rowena is kind of like curious about him, and you can tell she obviously wants to get to know him more, but Christopher's like, "Come on, we need to go," and that kind of thing. And
Right.
then basically, the story follows along where there's, they are put together in different situations, where they meet, they talk, they get to know each other, and then eventually they marry. And then once they get married, they have their honeymoon, they come back to their house. Verdon just changes back to how he was before they were married because Verdon had seemed like he changed, while they were courting.
Yeah, that was a lot of where the mesmerism kind of took place, in my opinion,
Yeah,
where it was like the farther away he was from the Abbey, the more that didn't have a control on him.
yeah,
Kind of like
true.
the whole thing of where when they use the ticking or the pendulum or whatever, like the hypnotic
Yeah,
swinging of something, they always use something for you to center on when they hypnotize you.
right,
So it's
absolutely.
like the Abbey was one giant hypnotic suggestion for
Yeah.
him.
And one other thing to note was that I can't remember what he said. He had some kind of accident where he had a light sensitivity. And so I want to kind of tie that into, I think they're kind of pulling that from like Roderick Usher in a way because he had the acute sense of the hearing where he could hear things
Yes.
way too much. Now we have Verdon who is seeing things and the light is too much for him. And so he wears these glasses that not only do they have, their sunglasses here, they kind of looked greenish blue, the lenses, and all
Yeah,
you could see was the lenses. And then they had the like horses, the blinders on on the sides too for peripheral vision.
right.
And so he wore those quite a bit. And one of the scenes when he was outside, inside he didn't necessarily wear them. But
Well, he
then,
started to quite a bit after that.
yeah. But one scene that he did not wear them outside was when they were married. He
Yep.
did not have them on for the wedding. And so I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of strange to me with this part because that's why I just the explanation didn't ring enough for me
Hmm.
for this. It's kind of like one of the hiccups that I've found in certain of the movies is that they try to implement these things, but they don't give a good enough explanation to make it work.
Yeah.
So they're using a prop, but they can't really give you reason enough to use the prop.
Yeah. Well, it's a prop that is intent, but it doesn't become a symbol.
Right.
You know
And
what I
that's the,
mean?
yeah, it was like certain things, it just felt like an afterthought. And then it became, in my opinion, became like a comedy thing for me. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, he's putting the glasses back on. You know,
Yeah.
you know, okay.
Yeah.
This it was like the whole CS Miami thing.
Oh, no,
CSI
oh, we're
Miami.
not David
Yes,
Carusoing this. No.
exactly. But I'm sorry, that's what I felt like.
Oh,
It's what I got.
Jeannie, you've just ruined it all for me.
I'm sorry, but you can't. I mean, that's what it got to me. That's why I was like, oh, really? No. But one of the
Oh.
things that really, okay, it wasn't really a detriment to the movie, but it
Mhm.
just bugged me was Vincent Price needed to have his goatee. He needed it. I mean,
Yeah.
I like the smooth shaven, and it made him look 10 times younger.
Oh, yeah, it did. But I did the
But
sideburns were very heavy
yeah, it was
in this
heavy
movie.
sideburns, but he didn't have his mustache, his goatee, nothing. And I
Hmm.
was like, dude, you look naked. It just bugged
Yeah,
me.
that based on especially the other movies where he did have his mustache.
Yes,
I think that, yeah, it makes him look very, very different. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know what type of hairdresser dude they had working on that movie, but his hair just had some funky curls going on. That one
Yeah.
swoop, you know, and I think that was the time. If you look at some of the other TVs and movies going on at that time, that's when like the male swoop of the
Yeah.
hair was going on. It was like, dude, stop it.
Yeah. But
But
if you think about it too, Christopher's hair was really curly as well.
yeah, and I'm not saying it looked bad. It just was
Different.
weird
Yeah.
because it just didn't fit, in my opinion. Uh, but it, I did like the whole setting with the Abbey and like we talked about. I did like how it was more organic than it was static, so that
Yes.
kind of helped play in it. The cat. That one part, I felt so bad for the cat because you could literally see the person's hand holding it under its stomach and running it back and forth like it was chasing uh Rowena
Hmm.
behind a sheet.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was that poor cat
The
because it
cat
was
was
just
a
hanging
really
there.
the cat was a really good actor,
Oh yeah, I
considering all
loved
the
the
things.
cat. I mean, I
Yeah.
was like I said, I was rooting for the cat half the time. But
Yeah.
that one scene, and I could see that person's hand holding that poor cat under the stomach and just running it across behind that sheet and the
Yes.
shadow. And I went, that poor baby.
Well,
He's so
I was going to say,
good.
yeah, the cat really did play a pretty big part in the movie because it made you wonder, is the cat Ligeia? Like, is she turning, did she possess the cat? Did she turn into the cat? Is she really alive? Is she not? And, we do find out later all of the answers, which we're not going to spoil, but
Right.
the cat made you think, is this really Ligeia or not? And what's going to happen based on that?
Right. The cat had a main role, let's put it
Hmm.
that way, in the
Yeah.
whole storyline.
And it terrorized Rowena.
Oh yes. And that's one of the things I thought was very um us being cat people,
Hmm.
because that one part at the very beginning before uh Vernon and Rowena actually become a couple, when
Uh-huh.
after when the black cat, he takes her into the kitchen and the black cat just jumps at her and scratches the side of her face,
Yeah.
and then the squire or butler or whatever we called him, and
Hmm.
he's trying to rub it and all that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, the next time you see her, it's gone. No
Yeah.
scars, no nothing. And I'm thinking, please, anybody that's had a cat scratch knows those things don't disappear and they don't
No,
heal that quick.
no, they don't. And you can't really see it, but I have a cat scar right here where a cat long time ago scratched
Uh-huh.
me, and I have a tiny bit of a scar. You can't really see it because of makeup, but it's there. I can see it.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, that was, you have to step away from reality on that part of it, because
Yes.
you're like, yeah, anybody that's a cat person knows that that's not going away. Uh,
Absolutely. But I will say that Rowena never really gave up on Verdon till the very end.
right.
It was very obvious she loved him and wanted to be with him and wanted to help him get over this oddness, this I guess mental torture, I guess would be the best way to say it, of the Lady Ligeia.
Yeah. It was kind of like an obsession.
Yeah, it
She
was.
was,
Absolutely.
it's like or an addiction. I guess
Hmm.
that would be in the more apt way of, describing it. The way Rowena kept him, kept trying to help him and everything. It's like she was trying to help treat him for an addiction. Like
Yeah.
he was addicted to Ligeia, that when she got him away from the Abbey and all that, it was perfect. They were a couple, they even had made plans to sell the Abbey and move
Hmm.
and, go and do more things away. And it's when they can't, like we were talking about, it's like as soon as they got back to the Abbey, it's like he fell back into that.
Yeah, to Ligeia's trance, kind of.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
they find out that the whole abbey and everything was technically in Ligeia's name, so he
Hmm.
couldn't sell it, because they'd have to
Exactly.
prove that she was dead.
And there was nothing, no documentation
Nope, no death
saying she
certificate.
was.
Nope.
So, yeah.
And so it definitely, I do think there's one part where Vincent Price does a monologue that it seems that he's actually reading part of the story as it
Hmm.
was written.
Yeah.
I don't remember it verbatim, so that's why I couldn't, and
I
I
think
didn't
I
go back
think
and look it up, but
I think I
it
know
did,
what.
yeah, it did feel like he was actually reciting Poe's words from the actual story.
Yeah, I think you're right. I again, I don't remember exactly the part, but I do think it did seem that way. Yes.
Yeah, because he went on. it was like during a part where he wasn't really on screen and he was walking, and then you see this you see the scene unve unrevealing type of thing, and then you hear his voice more, or maybe it could be me because sometimes I just listen to the voice before I can, I hear things rather and see them in my mind rather than what I'm watching. It's really kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and that was like that connected me more to the actual story of Ligeia, I think, than most of the rest of the movie did.
Yeah.
And
So I
even though it
just,
wasn't, okay,
well,
go ahead.
oh, okay, I was gonna say, I looked up basically, did he actually recite the original full words, of part of Ligeia?
Like,
And so apparently he did not recite verbatim like necessarily like the final passage, before all the stuff goes down. The screenplay was done by Robert Town, and he altered, lots of things. But what he did is he took Ligeia's final words and kind of twisted them a little bit. And so the last line of the Poe story is, "These are the full and the black and the wild eyes of my lost love of the Lady Ligeia." And what is recited by Price is, "Man need not kneel before the angels, nor lie in death forever, but for the weakness of his feeble will." So very, very different.
yeah. Well, it just seemed like there was a part where he was channeling
Yeah,
Poe in there, and the one thing is that like with the Mask of the Red Death, they end the movie on a quote from the actual writing.
yes, absolutely. That is the very last line of the story. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not spoken aloud, but well, it is, but it's written across the screen like it
right.
did in the Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah.
And so it it strayed a little too much for me in one
Hmm.
aspect of it,
Right.
but it was an interesting story.
Hmm.
But I wouldn't, it's like some of the other things. I would say it's more of a mismatch of Poe's stories than it was one particular.
Like just, yeah, straight,
Because
yeah,
it was
straight
more
on.
mesmerism, Black Cat, Ligeia, that kind of, because the symbolism was in there and some other
Hmm.
things. So it was like, it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I
But
guess, are we ready to do our black cat hisses and raven croaks?
yep, I'm there.
All right, me too. So, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's start with Raven Croaks. I give this one a 3.5.
Okay.
Like I said, it was 50-50 for me. It was great scenery. The Vincent Price, of course, was awesome. And
As always.
yeah, I was a little expectant with more of speaking. The dialogue at the very beginning kind of was lacking enough for
Mhm.
me, but they used that because they used the scenery, which that was okay.
Yeah. I
So
think I would say, I
yeah,
was going to just add, I think part of it too, this is the first character in all of the seven Corman movies that Price was in. He was really more of an introvert. All of the other ones, he's been a like very large extrovert, except maybe um Pit and the Pendulum, maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
Usher, maybe a little bit. When you really think about it, so that makes sense that how the dialogue would play that way.
true.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. He was definitely playing a little bit less of his normal characters that he
Hmm.
had been.
Yeah.
But like I said, I love the cat. The cat stole the show for me most of the time. Uh, but I'm a cat person. But yeah, I think the saving grace for the movie that made it a 3.5 for me was because it had such great scenery and the use of it was done well.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, for Black Cat Hisses,
Hmm.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to go with a 4.
Okay.
And just because the I hate to say it, but the character Elizabeth Shaw, oh, that's correct. Is that her
Shepherd.
name?
Shepherd.
Shepherd. I had the S right.
You did.
Elizabeth Shepherd. It was going okay, but then all of a sudden it just got so melodramatic, so overacting, so just, oh my God. I was like, nah. I mean, just even even her moments of trying to do slow motion acting were so eh. It's like, oh, and she would just literally push out. Oh, and the look on her face. She looked constipated half the time. It was just, oh my goodness. I was like, come on. And then, like I said with the sunglasses, I won't say it again because I don't want to, but I'm just saying. And then there was one part, this one part, the very end of the ending scene,
Hmm.
where I won't give it away, but Rowena is left behind with Vernon
Hmm.
and everything. And then he is laid her out and he's like having this part. And then all of a sudden, here comes Chris and the butler back all of a sudden, just out of the blue with
Right.
no rhyme or reason. They just pop back in. And it's like, why did you come back? I mean, you left. There was like 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden you just came back for no reason. He didn't call for them. There was he just like they just popped back in, and it's like, oh, we're taking her, and they take off. It's like
Well, I
it's
think
like
they were
oh,
worried what Vernon was going to do to her.
well, that was the thing. He had already done something to
Well,
her.
I
And
know, but
he
you know
left
what I
her.
mean.
I know, but that's what I'm like. That's what I'm saying. Why did they leave and then come back? That just didn't make any sense to me. But
Oh,
just they was just way too many instances where the melodrama of her acting and some of the inconsistencies just got a little too much for me.
okay.
But yeah, so I mean it was a good interesting movie. It kept my attention after after the beginning where there was like no dialogue.
Yeah.
But yeah, so four black cat hisses, 3.5 croaks.
All right. Well, for me, going with Raven Croaks, I'm going to say 5.
Oh.
Like I said earlier, this is one of my favorites of all the Corman films. And this is this is the of all of his films, this is probably the one that I watched last. Because I've seen all of these multiple times, and like I've watched some more than others, and this was it was the eighth one. I watched it last, just like it was filmed, but the other ones are very out of order of how I watched them.
Mhm.
And I think, again, talking about the scenery, just that natural aspect of the Abbey and just the nature part of it. It to me, it kind of really it also paid homage to some of Poe's stories and poems just because of the nature aspect of it. Because Poe talked about lots of different trees, plants, flowers, things like that in all of his works. And it was like the natural light in it too. Obviously I
Mhm.
know they had lighting because you have to in a movie, but it's like they almost didn't have to use as much. And it showed how beautiful it was. It was almost like a model without makeup, just the natural beauty of everything. And to me, it was like the Abbey wasn't a character, but in a way it was because of how Vernon changed from at the beginning when he was obsessed with Ligeia and she had that hold on him. And when he escaped, it was like he escaped from the house, even though he didn't realize that's what he was doing when he and Rowena were married and went away. And then he came back and it sucked him back in.
Yep.
And so just a characterization of that part to me was just phenomenal. And I did like all of the actors who played. I think they all did a really good job. I mean, in all these types of movies, I think you're going to have some melodrama, but I didn't think hers was as much as some of the former movies we've watched.
No, I think it was right up there for me. So,
Yeah, well, that's okay. That's okay.
yeah.
And, of course, the costumes of the time period were absolutely gorgeous. And just the story itself, I really do like the actual story, Ligeia by Poe. And
Mhm.
of course the cat. It just
Yeah, we're cat people.
this was the best cat character in all of the
Oh,
Corman movies.
I would given it an Oscar. It was that.
Yes, he should have. And one thing I didn't look at was did he have a name in the credits, like his real name?
I didn't notice.
We'll have to look at that. I'm kind of curious now.
Yeah.
Okay, so Black Cat Hisses, I'm probably going to give it probably a 3 because, they did vary from Poe's story enough that there were things that could have been, you know, I don't think they had to vary from the story as much as they
Mm.
did.
Right.
Um, in some aspects, yes, but some aspects, no. And I think a lot of it had to do with uh, trying to figure out how to portray the Rowena Ligeia connection and
Mhm.
everything. Um, the cat itself, there was no cat in Ligeia, and so
Mhm.
that again, like you said, it was kind of like they like kind of connected the black cat in a way into this. And while he was not necessary or she was necessary, I don't know if it was a male or female, it did add a whole lot to the movie. And
Mhm.
so it's kind of like I'm okay with it because it worked, but being like if you look at Poe purist what in a way, it didn't, it's like you didn't need to do that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
that was unnecessary, but
yeah. And so other than that, I mean, I really like this film. It's in the top probably 3 of the Corman movies.
I might rank it up there. I mean, I kind of like Premature Burial, even though Vincent Price wasn't in it.
Yeah, oh,
I
I
mean,
do too. I do too. We should
uh,
rank them, Jeannie.
yeah, yeah, that would probably be something we need to do since we've actually finished them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
I'd have to
well,
think about it. So I would
yeah,
rather we can do it on our next Poe Unplugged, on our
yeah,
next review morgue
right.
and
We
just
can start it off with our rankings then, and then move
yes.
on to our next show.
Yes. Which I guess at this point we can go ahead and say, Jeannie,
Mhm.
what are we going to be watching in June?
Okay, our next review morgue is going to be Spirits of the Dead,
Yes.
which ironically, that was one of Poe's poems, not
Yep.
a story, not a short story. But in this particular movie, it's actually three stories in one.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how they are going to try to tie it to Poe other than just borrowing the name Spirits of the Dead, but that's one of the things we're going to find out for next time.
Absolutely. And it's three directors, a different
Yes, three
director.
directors, three different
Yes.
stories,
Yeah.
and three different actors and actresses in each.
Yeah.
Now, some of them, like the supporting cast, may cross over, but the three main characters are all three different for the stories. So,
Right. And this is a Poe film I have not watched. It's been on my
mhm.
to be watched list or to watch list or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
I just have not made the time to watch it, so I'm excited that we're finally getting to do that.
Yeah, I'm not really excited. I'm kind of interested. I'm more interested than excited because I want to see what they did. And
Yeah.
so I'm not going into it with any kind of expectation. So that's one
Yeah.
of the things. So my interest is peaked, let's put it that way.
Good. Okay, good. All right.
Well, on that note, I think we
We
are
are
oh
out.
dun, dun, dun.